everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is kindly sponsored by healthjobs.co.uk. They list thousands of jobs and training courses on their website. Today's video is going to be about a specific healthcare related job: how to get a support worker job. If you've been following me for some time, you would know that I am a support worker for a homeless charity. In today's video, I will be covering, first of all, pre-graduation advice I would give for somebody who is trying to build their CV to apply for a support worker job in a few years from now or a few months from now. And then I will be going over some advice to help you with your CV. And finally, I will be going through interview tips that genuinely helped me to land the job that I have today. If you have been searching high and low, near and far, you have finally arrived at your destination. So keep on watching. Pre-graduation advice. The reason I call this pre-graduation advice is because a lot of you guys may be in the middle of your degree when you're watching this video. But of course, if you are post-uni or you haven't gone to uni and you are just looking for a support worker video that's going to help you get the job, this advice should be of help to you as well. My number one piece of advice to actually find things to put on your application that can help you move forward with finding support worker jobs is to start off in a bank support worker position. I mentioned in the introduction that this is what I did basically for a whole year before I started searching for support worker jobs full-time and part-time. Bank's position is a 0-hour contract. Usually you're not expected to come in for set days within a week. It's very flexible if you are a full-time student or even a part-time student. It's very flexible if you're currently doing another non-support worker related kind of role. The reason I would advise somebody to scout for these types of jobs first is because they are easier to get than fully fledged full-time or part-time support worker jobs. And for that reason, even if you've never worked in that kind of environment before, you may have a lot of transferable skills from previous places of employment or volunteering activities that you have done. If you're at university or doing anything in general where you have enough time and you can afford to do so, I would recommend volunteering with a client group that will be similar to the type of client group you would want to be a support worker for. This isn't the be or end all. Like for me, I was a support worker for young people in a bank position. So that is like, it was typically those aged 16 to 21. And the job I'm doing now is working with a different client group. The youngest is in their late 20s. It is an adult population and their needs are more specific to substance use than anything. So I did not actually have specific experience with the client group I'm working with before I landed my job. It's not the be or end all if you don't get experience related to that, but it can be helpful. Another reason I really want to advocate for trying to scout out locum roles, things like that, is because it will give you a great opportunity to network. You'll probably be covering a shift with another permanent member of staff that is literally doing the job that you want to do. It will be a great opportunity for you to ask them specific questions. How do you manage a caseload? How do you risk assess a client? How do you document this on your systems? How does it work? What type of paperwork do you have to do with over 3 months or over a month or within a week? What type of external professionals do you liaise with? And how do you typically do that with your specific clients? Asking them specific questions like that is what you can use to figure out what aspect of your CV you want to highlight when you're applying for support worker jobs, to show that I know how the system works and this is how my CV is tailored to your system. It's going to be quite difficult to get to grips with the systems that support workers work in if you're not asking them specific questions or not able to ask them specific questions. So bank positions may be an like an excellent avenue for that. I'm also quickly going to talk about where you can find these bank positions. I'm just gonna, off the top of my head, list some homeless charities where they offer bank support worker roles. So there is Evolve, there is Single Homeless Project, there is Centrepoint, there is St. Mungo's, there is Housing First. Don't just type in the word support worker. You might want to also type in the word project worker. My official job title is actually not support worker, even though I do the same things that a support worker would do. And that's just because different organizations call the same roles different things. It's nothing deeper than that. Moving swiftly on to CV tips. Honestly, if you have something more relevant to the role, you might want to put that at the top of your CV. So under the personal description section, next section is work experience. You might not want to go in chronological order. You might want to say, okay, my most relevant experience is, and then work your way down to the least relevant type of work or volunteering experience you've had. So there are different ways to structure a CV, and it doesn't always have to be in chronological order from which job you've done most recently. However, it is important to still put a time scale and let the employer or potential employer know how long you've done different roles. I still kept mine in chronological order just because my most recent form of employment was the most relevant experience as well. So it's really up to you. Whenever you want to explain a certain type of role that you have done, don't just list down activities that you've done. So an example could be saying that you have helped children do their GCSE homework as a tutor for young children with disabilities. Specify what it is about that activity that had a positive impact on the people that you were working with. Over 70% of my tutees obtained a grade B or above in their maths GCSEs when I helped them with their GCSE homework. That is something that will let the employer know that not only have you done various things, but it's made some kind of impact. Of course, you want to keep it brief. You don't want to have 8 bullet points for one job. You really want to focus on the specific tasks in that job that may be most relevant for your potential employer. The people that are viewing your CV, at the end of the day, they're human beings. What they're looking for are people who have the skills that they want. So the best way to make sure that you get shortlisted or to improve your chances of getting shortlisted is to include the buzzwords and to talk about the tangible impacts that you have made in a very condensed, concise way. My final tip before we go on to interview advice is, if you are in the phase of looking for jobs, you haven't landed interviews yet, I will recommend looking for support worker jobs where the type of career progression they offer within their organization, within that company, is something that's good for an aspiring psychologist or whatever job you want to move on into afterwards. Because what I find is that a lot of the time, I'm not sure how good or how bad this is, but a lot of the time it can be easier for you to move up from your position when you're moving up within your organization rather than when you're applying externally to another organization. So what I mean by this is some support worker roles out there are available, and within that organization there may be other roles where once you've become like a good kind of senior support worker, you can move on to other roles. Maybe they are AP roles within the same organization. It may be a lot easier for you to make that move rather than applying for AP roles to another non-NHS organization or even within the NHS. So that's something to bear in mind. That's something I wasn't really actively thinking about when I looked for my jobs. And if I was to do it all over again, I would definitely prioritize looking for support worker jobs with that opportunity to move on to an even more psychologically related role. Finally, interview tips and advice. So when I was looking for support worker jobs, I actually already had a friend who had a support worker job, and one of the best advice that she gave me was to make sure you know the company's values. Now, this isn't because the company is going to ask you what are all 8.5 of our values in chronological order, please. They're not going to necessarily do that. They might do, I don't know. You know, these people that are interviewing, they like to plot twist left, right, and center. But it's because even if they don't ask you that question, what's really going to make you stand out compared to other candidates is when they ask you a question like, okay, what relevant work experience do you have for this role? You can tailor your answer to the values that the company has. If you can tie in relevant work experience, so maybe you want to be a support worker for teenagers. Okay, here's a time that I was working with a young population and I did a fun, engaging activity with them. This proves that I've got good people skills, I'm engaging. But hey, I talked about spaghetti, your values. Check me out, I'm better than the rest. I'm also now going to go through the types of work experience throughout your other roles that you might want to specify in your job interview, because these are support worker job description criteria, different types of skills that they might expect from someone they will hire as a support worker. So the first one is managing a caseload. Can you think of a time you've ever managed a caseload of clients? Maybe at university, you were a welfare officer for one of your societies. Your caseload would have been all the people in the society that needed welfare check. Health and safety. Can you think of a time where you have been involved in managing health and safety regulations at an organization you were working at? Maybe you've done a building health and safety check as a locum support worker. Risk management and assessing. Now, this is a big one. This is a big, fat, juicy one, okay? Risk assessing people. So can you think of a time where you have had to assess someone's risk, basically? A time where you have had to be involved in crisis management. Specific, like, niche knowledge and understanding of the client group related to this specific job role. You know, any background information about types of challenges, that may arise in ex-offenders or people who have experienced different types of abuse. Using IT, one thing that can really set you apart and proving that you are very good at the IT element of this role is if you've had that locum position, that bank position, you've asked someone, okay, so how would I record an incident on your system? What is your system called? How do you use it? And then you go to that interview for that same company another day and you say, I'm actually familiar with using Inform to do various things like incident reporting, how to write up a risk assessment, how to do a support and safety plan, things like that. Written and verbal communication. So this one should be fairly easy for a lot of people. That's a very transferable skill from any sector that you're coming from. So don't be afraid to use your undergraduate university experience if you've got that to talk about your written and verbal communication. That is totally valid. Budgeting is another one. So maybe you're going to be working with clients who need support with managing their finances and so on. Has there ever been a time where you have done some kind of budgeting role within a society at university? Have you been a treasurer at a society? That would be very relevant, good experience to talk about. Finally, but not leastly, this is something that you may find you need to remember, not just during the interview, but also when you're writing your cover letter. Don't be humble, okay? Just this is not the time in your life to be humble. Being humble will not help you, will not get you points. The people that succeed are the people who are not afraid to sell themselves. You really have to sell yourself. And specifically, you're selling yourself through the type of language you use. So I'm going to talk about some words that we might commonly use to describe ourselves because we're so humble. You might say things like, I'm good at, I'm all right in, I'm okay with, I'm fairly decent with. So there's certain words that you just want to banish. Those might be those words, depending on the context. Other words you might want to consider: excellent, sufficient, highly skilled, exceptional. It sounds like very like, how can I call myself exceptional at something? Like, or highly skilled. Actually think about it. If you've done something for 3 years throughout your undergrad degree, why will you not be highly skilled? Let's actually challenge these thoughts. Why would you not be highly skilled? You are highly skilled. And I think sometimes we're so humble and we're trained through culture to be so humbled that we don't say things as it is. You want to sell yourself and use language to show confidence in your abilities and your skills, and isn't just about knowing everything, but being assertive to also ask for help and advice. Hey, I don't know this, can you help me with X, Y, and Z? They're looking for that kind of person. So that's everything that I have to share about today's video. Of course, if you've got any other questions or suggestions as a support worker yourself that you want to leave in the comment section below, feel free to. If you like today's video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you are new and you haven't already and you kind of like what I'm doing, don't ever forget it to subscribe down below. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.